Hey, everybody, welcome. It is time for the Bob Ryan, Jeff Goodman, Tangway Along for the Ride podcast. Okay, guys, I want to start with the Celtics. We were going to do some Anthony Davis. We'll get to that. I have a lot of opinions on the talk that's coming out of the Lakers right now, which I find nauseating. But Jaylen Brown carried the Celtics over the Nets, a 103-92 win. He was on fire. He had 20 points in the first quarter, hit some threes, and I thought it was perfect timing, Bob, even though Tatum had a good night last night, obviously. But Tatum had been struggling lately, and it obvious to me, Brown thought going in that he had to really step on the gas in this game.
He has been able, yes, he's been tremendous, and making his case for an all-star bid, for the second time, for sure. Tatum did have all those turnovers, too, by the way, in the midst of everything else, and he was sort of apologetic for that. No, it was a grinding game, and the game, they all recognized that they won that game. Yes, he had the 20 points in the first quarter, but that game was won by defense and creating turnovers when they had to have. When the game got down to 78-76, I think there were 4 turnovers created in the next, like 7 possessions or something like that. And sneak away baskets and life was good. The dialogue lately has been that the team has to remember how it got where it got last year, which was defense. They've been riding this wave of all this offense, and the threes have been falling, and la-di-da. That's wonderful. The number right up there in the league in offense, but in the end, and we all know when it matters down the road, you're going to have to play better defense, and they have been playing. And last night was a start in that right direction. It was a good win to launch a brutal road trip. I mean, a brutal. Not just the length of it and the craziness of having to pack for Toronto and Phoenix, but just the quality of the opponents. Toronto is tonight is a team you got to pay attention to, and of course they're going to Phoenix, and anyway, it's as a good way to get off and running on a very important road trip.
Yeah, I mean, Jaylen Brown certainly he's taken that next step. Right, which I think we all kind of wanted to see him do. The only thing he hasn't done is shoot the ball as well from 3 this year, and he was great last night against the Nets 3. But I think, again, I feel like now he's starting to embrace the fact that, okay, you know what? I'm not going to fight that I'm 1B anymore alongside. Jayson Tatum is the most talented player on this team. He's the best player. And you know what? I'm going to embrace the fact that the benefit is I don't see a double team every night. I don't see double teams every night. So I'm going to be able to thrive. And my next contract is going to be a max contract, partially because I play with Jayson Tatum. Right. And he should be an all-star because they're the best team right now in basketball. The best team should have 2 all-stars.
Well, they're surely the deepest right now, and they're going to get deeper with Robert Williams, which is going to, I won't say it's going to be a problem, but it's going to be an issue as to the distribution of minutes and how people getting used to new roles, if you will. You
know how you figure that out, Bob? You don't play Glass Rob 30, 35 minutes a game. You play him 25 minutes a game. That's what you do. Honestly,
right. I mean, why push him if you don't need to?
Protect Robert Williams so you have him healthy for the playoffs.
Right. Yeah.
Period. That's the biggest advantage you're going to have right now is your depth. Like you said, you have everything. When Rob Williams comes back, what are you missing? Legitimately, what don't you have in the Celtics team? You have absolutely everything you need. So all you got to do is stay healthy.
Well, the only criticism, if at all, has been, they're going to need a big at some point. They'll need a big at some point. I mean, obviously Milwaukee in the playoffs, you're going to need them. Yep. You're going to need them. And then he solves that problem. So as they say, Bob Ryan, a good problem to have. Now, Tatum did have 29 points with 11 rebounds. What do you think, Jeff, was going on with him the last couple games? Bob mentioned he had the turnovers. Or is it just one of those things that he's human too?
Yeah, I mean, he took that game off, right, Bob? He sat out, what was it, a week or so ago. Yeah. I just think it's a grind of a year, right, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, they're entitled for off nights, period, and that's all in the hell. It's not like Larry didn't have them. He had them. They all have them at some point. They're less than perfect nights. And this is the thing that they were able to withstand it. And That's fine, but no, he'll be fine. I'm not worried about it. I don't like the 9 turnovers. That's awful. That can't be repeated. And then, but he knows that. But that can't be. No, that's not good at all. When that was the issue last year in the playoffs and in the finals. So okay, but no, really, it's almost too good to be true-ish at the moment with this team. The way things fall into place. I mean, Luke Cornett's better than we thought. Sam Hauser is fooling Jeff Goodman. Come on, Jeff.
Yeah.
Fooling you a little bit.
Shots.
And and then there's that lingering issue that many people have of where's the minutes for Payton, damn it. Payton Pritchard should be, but it's hard.
I don't have that issue, Bob. That issue doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother me, but I'd like to see him he's merited those minutes. But the thing is, like, Malcolm Brogdon is Malcolm Brogdon. And, so that I understand.
Derek White's making a lot more money than Payton Pritchard. Who are you going to play?
Derek White too. Yes. But they have.
It's the beauty of the team. The beauty of the team is somebody gets hurt. Marcus Smart's out.
Yeah.
They find a way to work itself out in a long season like this, in the regular season. And then in the playoffs, hopefully you don't have to play Payton Pritchard. If you do, it hopefully doesn't kill you. But if you don't, that means you're healthy.
Yeah, right. And so, no, I mean, I'm just saying, I like the guy. I was rooting for the guy since they got him. Yeah. He makes hustle plays, and I like him. But what are we going to do? There's only so many minutes, and believe me, I'm very, very happy to have Malcolm Brogdon on this team. That's for sure.
He's awesome. He's such a great addition and such an understated player in person, Gary. He was exactly what this team needed because, again, he doesn't care about getting any attention or any of that. He just makes the right play. Derek White just makes the right play. And that's what you needed with, I don't want to say they're not ego guys in Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but they want to become alpha dogs. They weren't ready a year ago at this time, and they've grown into it.
Well, Jeff and Bob, both of you know this, that successful professional teams, regardless of the sport, always have a veteran or two that show people how you do business. And Bob, when you talk about a Brogdon, I think that especially with the coaching turmoil the Celtics had, that everybody has forgotten about, hasn't been an issue at all. When you have veterans like White and Brogdon that just go about their business and show everybody how it's done, that's like having another coach.
Oh, and there's no question. You're right. About what sport we're talking about. Those type of people are invaluable, and they're very fortunate to have. And they've got Big Brother. They got the ultimate Big Brother in Al, and they just signed up Al for 2 more years. And Al.
What did you think of that, Bob? What did you think of 2 more years for Al? What was the money? How much was it?
I forget the money, but. I'm a little surprised. I mean, I'm sure you have to go back to how they got him when Oklahoma City decided they wanted to live without him and sat him down literally, and that's how he was available to come back here. I'll tell you what, he's auditioning for the Udonis Haslem role. on the Celtics. By the way, Haslem got into a game here tonight.
2 years at $20 million, so basically $10 million a year. And he's going to play till he's basically, what does that put him at, almost 40?
Almost 40. Yeah. Haslem's 42. He actually played the other day.
It's a good.
Wait, you want to call what he did playing?
Well, he actually was put on the floor while the clock was ticking. Is that fair?
Yes.
I think Al is a good investment.
Well, you know what Al is? Again, even if he can be a rotation big at that point and playing 18, 20 minutes, he's a chemistry guy. He's a locker guy. And with Kyrie long gone, Al has made his presence felt in the locker room. I feel like the last go around, Al wasn't able to impose his leadership on that young team, largely because Kyrie was in that locker room. And now it's, again, you go in there, it's like it's a different locker room. It's a different vibe around them. And a lot of it is because Kyrie's gone. I mean, back then too, you had, Gordon Hayward was quiet. Al was quiet. Tatum was young. Grant Williams wasn't really in the locker room at that point. So it was such a different. Kemba was in the locker room for a while after Kyrie. He was quiet. Now It's just a good mix right now. It's a good mix.
Now let's go to the other side, the opposite end of the spectrum with the Nets, who are 13-12. The Celtics are 19-5. And Durant, as we talked about, you can have problems with Durant with what he says on Twitter, but he shows up and he plays basketball as he had 31. Kyrie, 7 of 21. He had 18. Simmons did not play. We keep saying, Jeff, about the Nets, like, boy, if they could turn it around, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't either. I think you're going to see a lot of ups and downs with it.
A lot of this where Kyrie goes, and Durant plays hard every night. And we've talked about it, Bob. We missed you last week, but one of the things Jeff and I said is we actually kind of feel bad for Durant because regardless of what you think of his personality, this poor guy is like giving it all every night, and he's got nothing.
Yeah, well, I don't feel. I wouldn't say I feel sorry for him in that sense. I understand what you're saying, and he is giving a professional effort, and he is still a great player, one of the top fill in the blank 5, 6, 7 player in the league, and a scoring machine at mid range and all that and that stuff. But I don't feel sorry for him. The guy he's been to the mountaintop. He's got a ring. He walked out of a situation for whatever reason. So he I don't have any sympathy for him in that regard. And so I'll spare that. But and I don't think we can judge the Nets on unless they do have Simmons. He's not my favorite player, but I do recognize what he does bring to their table, and then gives them a transition game all by himself, basically. And they if they're going to be whatever they are going to be, they got to have Simmons. I understand that. So Celtics are lucky they caught him in the right place in the right time, I think.
Kyrie, by the way, Gary. He's shooting 32% from 3 so far this season. Now, smaller sample size, obviously, he's only played 17 games, but I mean, that's the lowest numbers of his career since 2015-16 in Cleveland. He's been a 40% three-point shooter since then and is not making threes. You just wonder how much all of this has worn a little bit on Kyrie, right? Like, not to mention the fact that he's still got, a body that like his knees aren't great. He's been hurt a lot over the course of the last 5 years of his career. But the one thing you count on was like Kyrie being Kyrie when he went out on the court and being a dominant player. And he just doesn't look like that nearly as much as he did in the past.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, he's declared that about Jaylen Brown, he ain't heavy, but he's my brother. But when Brown comes back, maybe he is. Maybe I'm heavier than you think.
What? I missed this.
He said that Brown. He feels that Brown's his brother, a brother.
Yeah,
brother.
And Brown was not quite ready to go that far.
Yeah,
and he acknowledged that they have a much better relationship than they had here, and he's sympathetic. We all know he got himself embroiled in the controversy last week and all that, but he stopped short of saying, "Yeah, you're right. I'm your brother." No, he's not going that far.
Delusional Kyrie.
It's always.
Now
let's move on to the Lakers, who have turned it around a bit. I mean, the Lakers, after a 2-10 start, they won 6 of their last 8. But my God, so Anthony Davis has 55 points, 17 rebounds, 3 blocks. They beat Washington. The Patrick Beverly and LeBron start chiming in, Jeff, that AD should be in the MVP conversation. Jayson Tatum is. How come AD isn't? And first of all, let's talk about the turnaround of the Lakers, and then we'll get into the fact that both of those guys are crazy because you need to win a lot of games to be in the MVP conversation. What do you think of the Lakers right now?
I mean, it's good to see. I like this for the NBA. We want this, right? You want the Lakers to be relevant. You want LeBron. I don't want another year with LeBron not in the playoffs. I want to see him go out the right way and be in the playoffs and
Absolutely.
be in the Western Conference Finals. I don't think they can win the whole thing or anything like that. But like with LeBron, with AD, you got 2 of the top when they're out there. They're still 2 of the top 10-ish players in the world. And AD, we waited for this. Like he was on the verge of doing this years ago. And then obviously the injuries. It's always the injuries with Anthony Davis.
It's availability. It's absolutely. In the last 2 years, he's played 36 and 40 games, okay, going into this year. what he's doing, it has to be commended. And in the last 9 games, he's averaging 35 points a game. He's had a low of 25 and a high of 55. He's shooting 59% from the floor. And granted, an awful lot of them are dunks, but being provided him by LeBron, by the way, who's passing, we're going to discuss. And it's all about Davis being healthy. We have always known that. We've never said anything else. He's a tremendous, tremendous talent. And so as far as the MVP thing, if that's a chic thing going on everywhere, and I'm not concerned about that right now. Of course he should be in the conversation the way he's playing. If this thing continues, after the 2-10 start, they're 8-2.
But you're 10-12, Bob. You cannot mention the letters MVP with a player who is 10 and his team is 10.
Yeah, but but they're 8-2 then large, because I just gave you the reason why they won those games. Starting so he can enter into that conversation. Oh, right.
Enter it.
It's a lot.
That's fine. But
LeBron, Patrick Beverley, don't mention it until you're in the playoffs. Like, at least get in the playoffs where you're in the playoffs, and then maybe you can throw around his name for MVP. Until then, just shut up.
There's a lot of competition anyway. We know that. There's a lot of very worthy guys down. They're going to be involved, and so
even with Luka. Listen, even Luka, they're 11-11. You can't win the MVP if you're in the play-in. To me, you got to be one of the best six teams in your league right now to be considered an MVP candidate. That, to me, is what puts Jayson Tatum above everybody right now. Above everybody.
Well, it's just the difference between the mentality of the two teams right now. And maybe this is me being a Celtic honk, but I haven't heard anybody on the Celtics talk about MVP awards. This is the team that they were in the finals last year, and they were 2 games away from winning it. So here you have the Lakers. And this is the typical Hollywood thing: it's all about the individual award, and they're crying about the MVP. It's like, what?
And AD isn't doing it, guys. Just so we know, and we want to clarify here, this isn't Anthony Davis.
Oh no, it's his teammate.
Anthony Davis is he's one of the nicest kids I've ever met doing this. He is. I don't think people understand who Anthony Davis is because, remember, Rich Paul pushed him out of New Orleans to LA. So he kind of got a bad rap there, listening to his agent. And listen, I don't know. Won a title there. Life isn't so bad in LA, but Anthony Davis is a sweetheart of a kid. He's not going to be one. He and Tatum are similar personality wise. They're both kind of quiet to themselves. They're not arrogant, any of it. And neither one is going to be pushing themselves for MVP. It's going to be other people around him. And when LeBron talks, right, people generally listen. If LeBron, again, just slow your roll, LeBron. Slow your roll a little bit and wait till you're in the playoffs, and then you can start touting. And let's see a healthy AD for 70 games and not 45.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's a key. Obviously, it's always been a key. But this is a kind of a, hey guys, remember me statement he's making, right?
Yeah.
In the world of Jokic, the Joker, and Doncic, and Tatum, and Ja, and it's, hey guys, remember me? I'm pretty damn
still
good
here.
too.
And that's great, and we love it. And as far as Rich Paul pushing him in LA, that was the right move. To me as a fan, if you got a problem with the guy leaving New Orleans, New Orleans,
right,
for the Knicks or the Lakers or the Celtics or any of these major market teams that have chances to win a title.
Maybe not
the problem with a player.
Maybe not the
Knicks,
Barry, but
I don't, because it's New York. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, I'm not a Dolan guy either, but but if you have a problem with a player wanting to go play for a championship because he's never going to win one in New Orleans,
correct.
I mean,
correct.
Get over it.
Bob, you pair yourself with LeBron. That was
I mean, that's what they do. There's nothing wrong with that.
By the way, the guy in New Orleans is playing pretty well lately.
We talked about him in the last pod.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah. No, Zion's been good.
And he continues to play well.
Yeah. They've been good.
If he's healthy, his whole thing is health.
Oh, we've always, will the body, can the body, will it betray him in the end? That's the question with him, because he's going to do what he's going to do when he's out there, and nobody ever stops him.
How about
Bob? I want to start.
Jose Alvarado. You know that name, Bob?
Yes. Whoa.
38 points coming off the bench for New Orleans. He was like a mid-major recruit coming out of high school, goes to Georgia Tech, takes them to the tournament, undrafted, puts 38 up for New Orleans last night.
That's Lou Williams territory, what he just did. And so, no, I saw that. My eyes popped open wide when I saw that this morning. Yeah.
Very cool.
I want to ask Bob about this. Start with you on this one. I just saw that LeBron is just past Magic for 6 all-time in assists. And I just want to talk about that part of LeBron's game because I feel that he has – I think he's one of the best superstar passing players, period.
Oh, well, it's to me, you no longer – all right, I no longer can consider him as a forward. He's a player. He's got the ball, and I always said – all these years, the 2 best passing forwards of all time were Larry Bird and LeBron, and I'll still stick with that. And I still think Bird's a better all around passer. The difference is LeBron's got the ball all the damn time now.
Right.
Got the ball all the time. That's why what made Larry special and makes him special in the history of the game is that no one accomplished more ever with the ball in his hands less than Larry Bird. And that's going to stand the test of time. I don't think we'll ever see anybody get more done without the ball in his hands and as quickly as he had the ball in his hands. LeBron's got it. He's got the ball all the time, but he's a great passer. He made a beautiful hook pass last night to Davis, which I loved. It was a beautiful arcing hook pass. He's a creative passer and he's a willing passer, and he's always been a passer. But it just jumps out at you when you see where he's climbed in the all-time list. But he started out really as a forward, and now he's basically a surrogate point guard. And let's face it, when you got him, you don't need a point guard. And
I remember when he got criticized for passing too much.
Well, my theory, I'll repeat it for the millionth time. My theory on the difference between LeBron and Michael and how they got to where they were to the top of their respective mountains in their respective times. Michael didn't get there until he learned how to share, and LeBron didn't get there until he learned how to accept the responsibility of being the best player on the floor and acting accordingly. And he shied away in that Dallas series, and it was a catharsis. I think he really took the criticism to heart. He's been a different player ever since. He did pass too much in those days.
LeBron could go down. Again, he's going to be probably 2 in our books. I think all 3 of ours of all time, without being an elite shooter, like at all. I mean, he can make them.
Well, he can make them.
He's gotten better. Better.
I always grew up understanding the difference between a shooter and a scorer, and he's a scorer.
Yes.
Ray Allen was a shooter. That's a shooter.
Right.
And Pierce is a scorer, and that was evident from the nature of their games. LeBron is a scorer; he can make threes, but it's not the focal point of his game.
No.
All right, let's move on to what's going on in Atlanta. And Nate McMillan is always a guy who's a very good coach, controversial, isn't worried about making friends, but he does seem to get results. I don't know if it's going to end that way in Atlanta. The Hawks right now are in 4th place in the East at 13-10. So what happened with Trae Young, Jeff? Maybe you have some insight on this. Is that he missed a practice or a shoot around because he wanted to get treatment on his shoulder. So then McMillan says to his best player, "Well, you didn't tell me about it, so you can either come off the bench or miss the game." I mean, on the surface, to me, this seems pretty petty by a coach. If a guy's getting treatment, I mean, he's your star player. You got to let it go.
Well, I'm learning all this right now in real time. What that tells me or suggests to me is that this was a tip of the iceberg thing. That something had to lead up to it. That couldn't have been the isolated incident that caused Nate McMillan to do that. That's my first instinct. That it would take if that's the case.
All right, here's my question to you, Bob. What was Nate McMillan known for in his playing career?
Defense.
Correct. What does Trae Young not do?
Defend.
There you go. my guess is
2 and 2. Wait a minute. 2 and 2. Hey,
there you go. 4. There you go. Yes.
Okay.
I think there's some of that going on. I think there's entitlement, and Nate McMillan was a guy that had to grind it to get to where he is.
Absolutely.
Stay in the league and all that. And, he's watching Trae Young and maybe DeJounte Murray a little bit. and they're feeling themselves. They've gotten off to a pretty good start so far, which they haven't done in Atlanta the last few years. So I think there's probably some of that there too. Some more, hey, listen, you know what? Let's play the right way. And I think that's the issue for me with Trae. Trae can put up 40 every night, but he can give up 40 every night. And people don't look at that enough. And that's what, to me, makes Jayson Tatum maybe the MVP, makes Anthony Davis, when he's healthy, an MVP candidate, because they're not just scoring. They're impacting the game on the other end. And that's something that I just feel like doesn't get enough attention from people when they talk about the great players in the league. Like, there's great players who are great one-way players, and then there's great all-around players. And to me, that's such a separator. Like, Trae Young can't guard anybody. Nobody right now. Luka's gotten better on that end. He's not great, but like, he's gotten better defensively for the most part. And that's all. Steph got better. He was so bad early, and he got better to where he was an above average defender. That's all you can ask for. Don't be a liability. And Trae Young has to learn not to be a liability defensively.
Apropos of nothing we're talking about, but Nate McMillan, I just got to drop this in there. I saw him in the JUCO tournament.
Wow.
In Hutchinson, Kansas, in 1984. I went to the JUCO. I saw the whole tournament, which is a trip. The whole week. It's a phenomenal, if you're a basketball.
I've always wanted to go.
It was everything you think it is.
Yeah.
It was Walter Burry's big year for San Diego. But the second best player in the tournament was Nate McMillan of Chowan Junior College in North Carolina. And anyway, I always think of that when I see Nate McMillan. All right. Now, what you were just talking about, a guy that jumps out as the personification of what you're talking about, and why we revered, we were so enraptured with him in his good years, is Kawhi. Right. Kawhi brought it at both ends, and brings, when he's healthy now, that he's entered into that phase where, is Kawhi capable of playing tonight? He brings it. This is the guy that you're talking. This is the kind of player that your example.
Okay, so gentlemen, how do we feel about Louisville? Struggling.
I feel I'm throwing this in Jeff. He's going to explain how this happened, but I just want people to know what we're talking about here. They're not just 0-8, and they're 0-8. Okay, they're not just 0-8, and after losing their first 3 games by a point each to Wright State, App State, and Bellarmine, Wright State, they have lost their last 5 games by 26, 32, 19, 25, and 27. That's an average of 26 points. Jeff Goodman.
Yeah.
Casa in Louisville.
So, all right, he didn't inherit a great situation, right? Chris Mack basically left the team last January, midway through, and Mack didn't leave him a ton of great players, but he left them a bunch of front court guys, right? A bunch of them that were top 100 players. Kenny Payne takes over, former Louisville player. He was on the national title team with Denny Crum coaching, and he's revered, right? Kenny Payne was an assistant in Oregon for a while under Ernie Kent, where he became tight with the people at Nike. He then went to Kentucky, coached with Calipari for years as his assistant, and then the last couple of years went to the Knicks as an assistant there. And they hired him because the new fad is hiring former players for these programs, right? Ewing, Juwan Howard, Penny Hardaway, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Generally, most of them do not work or have not worked in the past. We'll see how some of these work going forward. Kenny Payne, here's how I compare it, Bob. This is the easy comparison. Kevin Willard took over a very similar situation at Maryland. Okay, Mark Turgeon quit halfway through the season too, earlier in the season. And culture wasn't great, whatever. Kevin Willard takes over at Maryland. Now, the only difference between Louisville and Maryland is Louisville's still under an NCAA investigation until a month ago. But Willard goes into the portal and gets two guards, Jameer Young from Charlotte and Donald Carey from Georgetown, and keeps some of the guys he's got that are used to kind of losing and a bad culture, whatever. And now they're undefeated. And I think they're like number 7 in my latest top 25. Maryland, undefeated, rolling. Jameer Young's been awesome. So he goes portaling, and it works out. Kenny Payne does not get anybody in the portal. Strikes out on guards, and he's got one guard on his roster, L. Ellis. And he's not a point guard. He's a JUCO kid who's kind of a scoring guard. And really his backup guard is Master P's son, a walk-on who transferred in from like Xavier, where he never played, and Tennessee State. So the difference here is like you gotta figure out the portal. And Kenny Payne is getting crushed for not only not figuring out the portal and not getting anybody, but also it's an embarrassment how they're losing games. Usually at this point in the season, the only teams without a win, guys, are teams that play bye game after bye game and get killed from the SWAC or the low majors that are making money, going around the country, getting paid 85 to 100 grand to get their brains beat in. Right. Usually when I put out the list right now of winless teams, it is like 3 SWAC teams and 2 other low majors. Well, I put it out this morning, and right now it is 4 teams left without a win. It is Louisville, it is Cal, it is Milwaukee, it is Central Connecticut State. And Cal is ravaged by injuries. Louisville just plain sucks. And Kenny Payne better figure it out fairly quick. He'll get, obviously, this year and one more. And the other part is, Bob, they missed out on DeJuan Wagner to Kentucky. DeJuan Wagner is one of the top players in the country coming in next year. Yeah. They hired his grandfather.
Right.
Milt. Right? Kenny Payne hired his grandfather, DeJuan's grandfather, and didn't get the kid. The kid chose to play for Calipari, who coached DeJuan Wagner. Yeah, DeJuan Wagner, DJ's father, and Nike was also involved here, obviously.
Fran Fraschilla, hey, Jeff, Fran Fraschilla says something interesting on the area tonight. Yeah. Which was that what schools should do is absolutely have one guy on their coaching staff who does nothing but watch video of games of the rest of the country the entire year in order to get into
the portal. No, it's true. Like guys right now they should be looking around the country, who's not playing or what mid-major is dominating that's got a year left that we can go get potentially, especially like if you're Louisville, you're over right now. They're going to quit on you. They already have kind of quit on them.
This is astonishing. This is a Louisville program that's got 3 national championships. I'm counting that 3rd one, by the way.
Which you got to.
I do. I'm not. And a legacy that goes back in the Final Fours in the 50s. Okay, we're talking about basketball matters.
Yes.
And by the way, they got to fill 18,000 seats in the Yum Center. I don't know how they're
going to lose a lot of money now. A lot of monny.
And it's not that long ago that Tom Urich was being hailed as the best AD in the country before all the bleep hit the you know what.
Yeah.
And oh my God. Anyway, it's shock. But the numbers, I'm going to repeat them as an exit. They lost the last 5 games by 26, 32, 19, 25, and 27. Mon Dieu.
Bad.
We'll end on that note. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Jeff, thank you for filling us in on the Cardinals. Bob, good to have you back.
Great to be back.
All right, guys.
Every day. This episode of the Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast is brought to you by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase.